Welcome to WeatherGod's Wisdom, where we talk about tropics and only tropics because it's the hurricane season. So, we've got this Invest 96L in this central Caribbean right now, or close to the central Caribbean. Got Hurricane Umberto, Tropical Storm Jerry, this thing, and Tropical Depression Imelda. This is a lot to talk about, and even if I wanted to talk about the Eastern Pacific, we've got Tropical Storm Lorena, and just off frame, you've got Tropical Storm Mario. So yeah, that's happening. And we're going to briefly cover Umberto because we're pretty much done with the system, besides the fact that it is currently impacting Bermuda as a very powerful Category 3 hurricane. And if you look at the National Hurricane Center advisory, you can see here, it is really just hammering Bermuda right now. We've got gusts out of Bermuda that are well into the Category 2 strength, and even Category 3 gusts that are happening there near 120 miles an hour, which is the maximum sustained winds in the system. And if you look briefly at the overall hurricane force wind field, you can see it's pretty giant. This is a huge storm. And you can, if you look back, yeah, this is a giant storm. So Umberto will likely go out to sea and is about 50% done with extratropical transition to a very powerful extratropical low. So yeah, goodbye, Umberto. That's, yeah, pretty much all I have to say. And its implications on Jerry's track have become less and less as time has gone on, because we're going to talk about that later, but Umberto's moving pretty fast. So that's a good thing for Bermuda. But anyway, let's get into Tropical Depression Imelda, which has produced a significant amount of rain, just not where it was forecast. And if you look at the Harris County flood warning system, you can see in the past 24 hours, we've had a pretty good amount of rain. You see some totals in here that are, actually, if we go to 2 days, you can see pretty significant totals here in southern Houston, and they're starting to work their way northward. And this is partially due to, if I go to the radar data here in Houston, most of the bands have sat over southern Houston for today. And so now bands are starting to develop a little northward. And a couple precipitation models, I'm not going to show them to you because that would take forever to talk about them and stuff, but we're just going to talk about them briefly, have forecasted that this first band right here is going to last about 2 more hours over Houston. And then overnight, we have another band developing a little closer to the mid-level circulation of Imelda, which is right in here, and will camp out a little further south from what the models typically, what the models have kind of done here is develop this really powerful band that sweeps across Houston and drops about 6 to 8 more inches of rain on top of the already pretty high rain totals in here. And so this is not ideal. So a lot of people I know have kind of let their guard down today, and it's understandable. You've only had a little bit of rainfall from the system, which has good news, because yesterday we were kind of thinking that today was going to be a pretty big day for rainfall, but that ended up happening east of Houston, and that is good, because now when this other band comes in, the flooding won't be as significant, but it will still be very significant. And so the original forecast of almost 40 inches of rain from some forecast models has shifted largely to the east, which is very unfortunate for communities in Liberty County and near Beaumont, and, you know, on the rest of Highway 10 here. Just a very unfortunate situation developing here, because they're still in for about 20 more inches of rain. But this is good for the Houston metro area, which has a lot more people and would be catastrophically affected if something like this went down. So we have an example of that like 2 years ago. So glad that that is not going to be happening again. However, I preached all the good news. The bad news is that you're still probably going to get a lot of rain. So flooding is still possible. It's just not catastrophic. And so that it not being catastrophic is like saying, well, your house didn't get hit by a wrecking ball. It just got hit by, its roof just got taken off. Like, it's the same thing. It's just not as bad. Like, it's not complete loss. It is 50% loss. So you still need to be preparing if you live in Houston, because this band is about 12 hours away from, forming and then impacting Houston for most of the morning tomorrow, and before, kind of the sporadic showers that you've been seeing today that have kind of just, you've got 2 showers in here that are moving right now over Houston, kind of sitting. And the positioning of this band is very important. So if it positions itself north of Houston, then less people will be affected, but ultimately downstream flooding for all the channels. And if you go back to the map here, you look at all the channels, you can see, come on, man. You can see all these rivers flow down. And so if you have a band that sets up here, it will just be going downstream. And so you won't be spared. But if it sets up over Houston, it's the same thing. If it sets up south of Houston, then that's what we've kind of already been seeing. If it sets up east of Houston, which is looking to be a little more like what could happen, but I'm not going to, say anything that is set in stone, because, we've had this happen before where minor repositioning has resulted in major differences in impacts. And so if you live in Harris County, you need to be preparing for floods, just not, Harvey floods. And I don't know what to say if you are not preparing and you're just like, oh, well, we're just going to get a little bit of rain. Like, that, I don't know what to say to you. So please do get ready for the rain, just because it did not happen as catastrophically as it was originally forecast. And you're still talking like you've got if you go back, you've got pretty good rain totals, and especially in East Houston, you've got like 7 inches of rain over the past 48 hours, and even South Houston, you've almost gotten 10. So this is not a joke. And even in Central Houston, you'd have 4 inches of rain. In some cases, almost 5. Like, this is still serious. And we could get more flooding if said band positions itself right over Highway 10 and is about as thick as the first loop around Houston. So, and that would be what's happening here in the eastern portion of the kind of Houston field of influence. And so just be thankful that this did not set up over here, because then you would be dealing with way worse conditions. But this kind of thing could set up north, south, or on top of Houston. I just circled Houston twice. Wow, amazing. So do not let your guard down. That's pretty much the summary of what I'm saying here. Do not let your guard down, because just because you got, summer showers over here and only got 4 inches of rain versus, the 10 inches of rain that you're supposed to get today. Just because it was thankfully over forecast does not mean it will not be. Does not mean it will be over forecast again. So do not let your guard down and stay safe if you are in Houston. And I will be posting the Cajun Navy, especially their number, especially for the people east of Houston in Liberty County, and I don't know what these other counties are named. So just stay prepared. All right, moving on. We're going to go to Tropical Storm Jerry. And this storm has really kind of blown us all away. And I don't mean that in a pun type of way. This literally has. This very impressive system for as far east as it is. And the amount of convection, and you can even see it here, this just round after round of very impressive convection has been firing over the core. And the only reason that this has not, like, you know, responded in a more aggressive way to these continued bursts of convection is because it is kind of decoupled. You've got a lower level circulation out ahead of the system and a mid-level circulation a little where the, you know, where this main blobs of convection have been firing throughout the day. And so you've got a little bit of a difference here, and I think that gap is starting to close a little bit because now you're starting to see kind of pseudo banding firing in and out of the core here. So you're starting to see a little more of a cohesive cyclonic convective system here rather than just, you know, a convective system. And so that could lead to some pretty significant intensification in the next 48 hours. And if you look at the HWRF at 40, if you go back, HWRF really just explodes the system into a hurricane, not even in 24 hours. You have 18 hours. It's already a pretty powerful hurricane. And 24 hours, it has it as, you know, a powerful hurricane. And so they continue to really explosively intensify the system and move it uncomfortably close to the islands. You can see in the southern kind of scope of this, you got Antigua and Barbuda here, and St. Martin, I think, over here, and St. Bart's as well. St. Bart's is right in here, I think. And I'm not an island master. But you have these, just the very explosive intensification. You even have it here as 123 knots is a strong Category 4 hurricane. But that's the first act of this intensity model run. And you can see that it gets annihilated essentially by shear, and that is something that is in question here because we don't know how strong the factors that are going to be shearing the system ultimately will end up being. And so what's shearing this will ultimately decouple it at this time. You can see, if you look at the temperature map, you can see the old center, the mid-level center is drastically decoupled from the low-level area. And so you have a much more shallow system, and you can see that here. Just very shallow system, and the top kind of gets sawed off here. And it's mainly just a lower-level system and much more shallow. And so it's not really able to recover from this. And if you go back to, if you go to the, you know, final bout of this, you can see it's a really shallow system at this point. And it's not even reaching up to 400 millibars, which is the mid-level. So this is a really weak system. But then it hits the Bahamas and, you know, starts to recouple a little bit. And towards the end of the run, you can see that it's much more vertically stacked here in the temperature column. And so that's good for the system, and how uncomfortably close this is uncomfortable. Yeah, this is uncomfortably close because it is north of the Bahamas here, and if it is a little stronger than, say, you know, a little stronger than this, and it moves further south, then it could, you know, pass pretty close to the Greater Antilles. And this is evidenced by, credit goes out to weathernerds.com. The European ensemble runs have the stronger the ensemble run is, the further west it goes. And so before a recurve, and some models don't even show a recurve. If you go to the, again, credit to weathernerds.com. I'm going to try to scroll up here if it will let me. Okay, well, we're going to do it that way. You can see even some take it as far west as Florida and the Gulf of Mexico. And some take it ultimately into Cuba and have it recurve north into Florida. But you can see that the stronger runs tend to take this a little further to the west. And this is because if you look at, let me pull it up, the 200 millibar winds, you can see there's a ridge right in here that is pushing the system almost due south. And it feels the influence more right here, while it is still very strong. If you actually look at of course, the sounding data is not available. But yeah, I don't know why it does that. Credit goes to Levi Cowan, by the way. He's awesome. I love that guy. But it will feel this more if it is a deeper system. And so that's probably why you even see that one track that takes it south of the islands here. And that's probably why that happens, because, and you can see that track right there, because the system is so strong. And we're going to be watching this for the next couple of days as it moves westward. It's still several days out, and that's mainly because, you know, the system still has a lot of movement to do before it does, you know, finally become a threat to the even islands. But this is all within the next like 3 days, and still a lot to figure out here in the forecast. So with that, I think we're done. And that is a wrap for this video. All credit goes to tropicaltidbits.com, National Hurricane Center, any other graphics I used, like the Harris County Flood Warning System and College of DuPage. All credit goes to them for the set image credit, pretty much. And please do remember, contrary to my name, I am not a meteorologist. And I would refer always to the National Hurricane Center and National Weather Service offices for your area when talking about Imelda, Jerry, Umberto even, and any invests that, you know, have a shot. I don't think this has a shot, contrary to what the Weather Underground blog says. I don't think this has a shot, and this may have a shot, but that's my brief coverage on those. Anyway, we're done, and see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Love you guys.